You'll never be my real MOM, the 23-year-old screamed. And when Dad dies, you get nothing. She didn't know I'd been managing her trust fund for years, or that her real MOM had left everything to me in her will. Madison threw her wine glass against the wall, sending Merlot streaming down the pristine white paint of the dining room I'd spent 3 days choosing the perfect shade for. 23 years old, and she still threw tantrums like the spoiled child she'd always been. I want you out of this house, she continued, her perfectly contoured face twisted with rage. Dad only married you because he was lonely. You're nothing but a gold-digging replacement, and everyone knows it. I calmly continued eating my salad while my husband Richard sat frozen between us, as he always did during Madison's outbursts. 10 years of marriage, and he still hadn't learned that appeasing her only made things worse. Madison, please, Richard said weakly. Diane is your stepmother. Show some respect. Respect? Madison laughed bitterly. For what? Playing house with my dad? Spending my inheritance on her tacky renovations? She's nothing to me. Less than nothing. I set down my fork carefully. Are you finished? Oh, I'm just getting started, Madison sneered. I've been talking to lawyers. When Dad dies, you get nothing. Zero. Everything goes to me as his biological child. The house, the money, all of it. You'll be back where you belong, in whatever trailer park Dad found you in. I see, I said, taking a sip of water. And what makes you think your father's estate is all there is? She laughed again, that cruel sound I'd heard so many times over the years. Please. We all know you came into this marriage with nothing. My mom was the one with family money. Dad was successful. You were just some secretary he felt sorry for. Richard shifted uncomfortably. He knew the truth, but as always, he stayed silent rather than contradict his daughter's narrative. I stood up, smoothing my napkin. You're right about one thing, Madison. I'll never be your real mom. Your real mom was Alexandra Winters Coleman, heiress to the Winters pharmaceutical fortune. Don't you dare speak her name, Madison hissed. The same Alexandra who died when you were 13, I continued. The same Alexandra who spent the last 2 years of her life in the cancer ward, where I worked as head nurse. Not secretary. Nurse. Madison's face faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. So what? You were her nurse. That doesn't change anything. Actually, it changes everything. I walked to the antique secretary desk in the corner, Alexandra's desk, which Madison had always assumed would be hers one day. I pulled out a thick legal folder. Your mother and I became close during her treatment. Very close. She was worried about what would happen to you, growing up without a mother's guidance. She'd seen how Richard spoiled you, how he couldn't say no to his little princess. Shut up, Madison said, but her voice had lost some of its venom. She made me promise something, I continued, opening the folder. She asked me to look after you, to try to give you the guidance she wouldn't be there to provide. And she gave me the tools to do it. I pulled out the first document. This is your mother's will. The real one, not the summary Richard gave you. Would you like to know what it actually says? Madison snatched the papers from my hand, her eyes scanning frantically. I watched as the color drained from her face. This can't be real. It says she left everything to you. In trust, I clarified. To be managed for your benefit until you demonstrated sufficient maturity and responsibility to handle the Winters fortune. Those were her exact words. But I got my trust fund when I turned 21. You got a trust fund, I corrected. The one your father set up with his money. About $500,000, which you've nearly blown through in 2 years. Your mother's trust, the real Winters fortune, is worth approximately $47 million. Richard finally spoke. Diane, I think we should. No, Richard, I cut him off. 10 years of silence while she's abused me. 10 years of keeping the peace. It ends tonight. I pulled out more documents. For the past 10 years, I've been managing your mother's estate. Growing it, actually. That $47 million? It was $31 million when she died. I've increased it by almost 50% through careful investment. Madison was shaking now. You can't, this isn't. Every month, I've assessed whether you were ready. Every cruel word, every tantrum, every "you're not my real mom." It all went into the reports. Your mother wanted you to become a woman she'd be proud of. Instead, you became this. I gestured to the wine stain on the wall. A 23-year-old who still throws glasses when she doesn't get her way. Who's never held a job. Who treats people like servants. Who just threatened to throw me out of a house I've been paying the mortgage on for 5 years. You're lying. Madison shrieked. Dad pays. Your father's business went under 3 years ago, I said quietly. He was too proud to tell you. I've been covering everything. The mortgage, your credit cards, your apartment in the city, your Mercedes lease. All from my salary and investment income. Not touching a penny of your mother's money, because I was still hoping you'd grow up. Richard buried his face in his hands. The truth he'd been too ashamed to admit was finally out. But don't worry, I continued. I'm done hoping. As of tonight, I'm exercising my discretionary power as trustee. The credit cards will be canceled. The apartment lease won't be renewed. The car will be repossessed. You'll receive the same monthly allowance your mother specified for a child who refuses to mature. $2,000. Enough to live on if you get a job and budget carefully. You can't do this. Madison screamed. I'll sue. With what money? I asked. And which lawyer will take your case when they learn you're suing to overturn your own mother's will? The mother you claim to revere but whose actual wishes you've ignored. I pulled out the final document, a letter in Alexandra's handwriting. Would you like to hear what your mother wrote about you? Madison was crying now, ugly sobs that ruined her careful makeup. My darling Madison, I read. If you're hearing this, it means you've failed to become the woman I hoped you'd be. I'm leaving everything to Diane because I trust her to do what I cannot. Teach you that money without character is worthless. I hope someday you'll understand that the greatest gift I can give you is not wealth, but the chance to earn it. I set the letter down. Your mother saw what you were becoming even then. A spoiled, entitled child who confused cruelty with strength. She hoped I could change that. I tried, Madison. For 10 years, I tried. This is illegal, Madison whispered desperately. You manipulated her. You stole from me. Every penny is accounted for, I said. Every decision documented. Every chance you were given to prove yourself ready is recorded. Would you like to see the file? It's quite thick. 10 years of opportunities you squandered. Richard finally found his voice. Madison, you need to apologize. Maybe if you show Diane. Show me what? I interrupted. That she's sorry she got caught? That she's capable of fake remorse when her money is threatened? That's not maturity, Richard. That's manipulation. I turned back to Madison. Your mother left you something else. Something not tied to the trust. I pulled out a small jewelry box. Her wedding ring. She wanted you to have it when you got married, assuming you found someone who loved you for more than your money. Though at this rate, that won't be a problem anymore. Madison snatched the box, clutching it like a lifeline. I hate you, she whispered. I know, I said sadly. But I loved your mother, and I promised her I'd do right by you. Enabling your behavior isn't right. Letting you waste her fortune on designer bags and bottle service isn't right. Your mother worked as a pediatric surgeon. She saved lives. She wanted you to do something meaningful too. I'm an influencer. Madison protested. I have 50,000 followers. Bought followers, I corrected. Your engagement rate is 0.3%. I know because I've been paying for your social media manager too. Another expense that ends tonight. I gathered the documents, returning them to the folder. The $2,000 monthly allowance is enough to rent a modest apartment and cover basic expenses. You'll need to get a job for anything beyond that. The trust will be reevaluated in 5 years. If you've shown growth, real growth, not just performance, we can discuss increasing your access. 5 years, Madison wailed. I'll be 28. Your mother was 22 when she graduated medical school, I pointed out. By 28, she'd already saved dozens of lives. What will you have done? I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Madison? That trailer park you mentioned? I grew up in subsidized housing with a single mother who worked 3 jobs. I put myself through nursing school with loans and night shifts. Everything I have I earned. Can you say the same? The silence was deafening. Your mother saw something in me during those long chemo sessions, I continued. She saw someone who understood that privilege is a responsibility, not a right. She trusted me with her fortune and her daughter. I've managed one successfully. The other, well, that's up to you now. I left them there, Richard staring at the table, Madison clutching her mother's ring, both finally understanding that the replacement mom they'd tolerated for a decade was actually the one holding all the cards. That was 6 months ago. Madison raged for weeks, hiring lawyers with money she didn't have, posting tearful videos about being robbed, that her real followers quickly saw through. When the reality hit, no more shopping sprees, no more VIP tables, no more luxury apartment, she had 2 choices. grow up or give up. To my surprise, she chose growth. It started small. A job at a coffee shop, the first real employment of her life. An efficiency apartment in Queens instead of Manhattan. Budgeting apps instead of black cards. She stopped calling me for money and started calling her father for advice on how to stretch a dollar. Last week, she texted me a photo. She was in scrubs, having enrolled in a CNA program. Not a nurse yet, her message said. But it's a start. I smiled, thinking of Alexandra. Her daughter was finally becoming someone she'd recognize. The trust fund remains locked, its millions growing quietly while Madison learns what her mother always knew. That real worth isn't measured in dollars but in character. When she's ready, when she's truly ready, she'll inherit both her mother's fortune and the knowledge of how to use it wisely. Until then, I remain what I've always been. Not her real mom, but the guardian of her real mom's legacy. The woman Alexandra trusted to do what needed to be done, even when it meant being hated for it. Especially when it meant being hated for it. Madison still hasn't apologized for that night. She probably never will. But last month, she sent me a card for Mother's Day. Inside, in her handwriting, "Thank you for keeping your promise to her." It wasn't Mom. It might never be. But it was acknowledgement that sometimes the best thing a parent can do, real or replacement, is refuse to enable their child's worst impulses, even when it would be easier to just write the check. Alexandra knew that. She knew her daughter needed tough love more than trust funds. She knew that someone who'd earned everything would value it more than someone who'd inherited it all. She chose her replacement well. Even if it took Madison 23 years to realize it.